Guys, I was just at the Georgia Bushcraft Fall Gathering. It's an incredible event. Great for those who are in bushcraft, or if you're a prepper, survival, homesteader, or you just like to get back to nature. There are so many different classes that they offer, and it's down in Watkinsville, Georgia, which is a beautiful area, just south of Athens, Georgia. I did an interview with Casey Deming in an earlier video just talking about the bushcraft event, and it's just a lot of fun. The fall gathering, again, is in the fall, and then they have the spring camp out. So while I was down there, I taught a couple of classes on get-home bags or bug-out bags. Now, we've done a lot of that here on the channel, but this was just kind of a setup, and I was talking in more of a class-type setting, had quite a few people there. It was just a lot of fun. There's a lot of things that I'll talk about, whether it's just setting up your bag or the items that you need in your bag and why you need them. Also, pitfalls between a get-home bag and a bug-out bag, and what are the differences. Just a lot of information. So it was kind of an impromptu video that I set the camera over to the side, but again, a lot of information, and I told the guys while I was down there that I would be posting a video about the event. So hopefully you might be able to get some nuggets out of our little class on get-home bags and bug-out bags. And guys, if you're interested in the Georgia Bushcraft event, you can go to georgiabushcraft.com. All right, welcome. Welcome to bug-out bag. We're going to talk a little bit. Who has a bug-out bag or who has a get-home bag they carry all the time? Good. I want to. Good. Okay. Good. So what we're going to talk about first is why in the world you'd want to have something to carry. What are the reasons? Why are you carrying it? So I'll give you a little backstory. So I do carry a bag in my car, and honestly, I call it my get-home bag. My goal is to get home. That's where my stuff is, and maybe that's where my family is. So that's the number one thing, is to get home. When I put something like this in the back, it doesn't mean that I'm preparing for zombie apocalypse or anything else. One of the things I've found a number of times is what I call the personal SHTF. And that means that it doesn't affect anybody else, it's just me. In fact, my buddy Rodney was driving recently, and somebody went off the freeway, just went off into a ravine. And it was very slow where he was, and if he hadn't been there, nobody would have even seen it. So he actually pulled down, helped them out. They were stuck. So there are just things that can happen on an everyday basis. For me, I was in Charlotte, in North Carolina, a couple of years ago, and I had my bag. On the way up, the rack on my Hummer started coming loose. So I pulled over, got out some duct tape, and hooked, got it secured, went on up, went there, and then when I was leaving, I came in one direction, but GPS took me another direction. And so I went down near Rock Hill, which is really remote outside between Charlotte and Rock Hill. Lost signal. Didn't have a map. My map went. Well, I had a map in my bag. Then my cell phone started going out, and actually I didn't have my I'm a real good prepper. I didn't have my cell phone charger in the car, but I had to stop and get it. But sometimes there are just things that happen. It doesn't have to be, oh, he's crazy, he's carrying around all this stuff. Even FEMA. Not that I'm going to recommend FEMA, but I will recommend ready.gov. And they have a really good channel, or a website, where they recommend these are the things that you need at home for an emergency situation. But these are the things you need to have a tote ready in case you need to evacuate. We recently had a train derailment near our place, and they took 1,500 people. They went door to door and made them move out, get out, because it was a toxic spill. They had their bag, they grab it, have things ready to go. So there's a lot of reasons why you should have something. When my kids were young, when they first started driving, first thing I did was I got them a bag, got it set up, and I took it and I put it in each of their vehicles. And I said, keep this in your car. So if they ever run into any kind of something, or they just need a screwdriver, or they just need some duct tape, or they're at a friend's house and they're starting a bonfire and you have your fire kit. So it's not about being paranoid. It's not about being, there are so many practical applications. Ran out of gas one time, going to my mother-in-law's house. It might have been on purpose. And so when I got there, I have a Hummer, and it has a gap between the gas, where they put the gas in, and the body. Well, these new safety nozzles, they won't work. They don't fit. So I pulled out a bandana, tied it around it, pulled it up, and I was able to fill my car. So just a number of different reasons to have a bag put together. Now, for my get-home bag, I have a bag about this size. It's not a large bag. Now you can, but you know, for a bug-out bag situation, I have a little bit larger bag. In a bug-out bag, you want to have about 72 hours worth of supplies in there. We went to the beach last year, and I decided just to look up on Google Maps, because you have three options. You have a way to look at driving, bicycle, or walking. We were 4 hours away. I looked it up. It was going to take 2 solid weeks to walk, 24 hours a day. So that means it's going to probably take a month, might take longer, because you're moving slower, you got family with you. So if you're in a situation to where you are way away from home, it takes a lot more time than you think. A lot of times we'll take a bag and we'll say, well, we got our supplies in here. You put that in your car and you're like, man, I'm good to go. And then you don't realize that you're a month away from your house. And you can't stop, but you can't store that much. So one of the things about having a bag in your car is it buys you some time. It's just like with prepping in general. If you're thinking about prepping, or you've been doing a little bit of prepping, you can't have all the supplies you need. You just can't do it. But it will buy you time. Maybe for a new normal, maybe to allow you to have some ideas. But here's the other side of it. You know, a lot of times people, they'll get these ideas in their mind. They say, okay, I'm planning for this. I'm thinking about this. I'm looking at the economy. I'm looking at, and then COVID hits and throws everybody for a loop. They're like, what? We weren't even expecting anything like that. If you were in Western North Carolina, especially, and Eastern Tennessee last month, I lived in Western North Carolina for 20 years. If we'd have had that notice come up and said, hey, there's a hurricane coming, I'd have been like, okay, you know, we'll prepare, but I'm not worried about it. But people had their entire houses just slid down a mountain. You never know. You think, you know, there's nothing going to happen. It's just smart to have some things put back. So now what I do is to put this together, because first thing is you think, well, what in the world am I going to put in this bag? You know, even people that are more prepared minded, it takes, you know, they think about it. They're like, you know, because when I first started, I would go, I need that. Oh, that looks good. I'm going to get that. Oh, that looks good. And before long, I have all this stuff, but yet I don't have medical, or I don't have a way to filter water. So this is, and some of you have heard this one, the rule of threes. I base all of my preps, my bags, everything on rule of threes. You can live 3 minutes without air, 3 hours in harsh conditions, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. And medical and self-defense flow in between. And also fire. Now, we live in a very convenient world. Everything is pretty much taken care of us. We were out of power for a week. All those conveniences disappeared. But thank goodness we were prepped, had generators, had lighting, we had everything to where my wife, right in the middle of the week, she said, you know, this isn't so bad. You know, and we had our neighbor next door didn't have a generator, you know, and they're like scrapping around and wanted to hook into our generator, which is fine. But having some things put back, even in normal times. Now, one of the great things, you know, I've been kind of worried about the economy, been worried about some of the things that were going on in the world with wars and all that. So I was kind of in that mindset, and then Trump gets in office, and I'm like, whew. But that still doesn't negate that you have personal SHTF in your life. Plus, I mean, there's a lot of other things that can happen. So, rule of threes. So, what I want to do is I'm going to pull out a bag. I'm just going to show you some items. This is the one thing about it, and the beautiful thing about this community and just in survival community in general, is that we're getting more and more choices. So there may be some things in here that I pull out and you go, oh, I'd rather have this, or I'd like that, or I prefer this. That's what it's about. This is just the way I set mine up. So this is what I have in the back of my vehicle. And I keep a Red Cross on here because I do have medical in here as well. Have a knife. Now, one of the biggest things is a fixed blade knife. And when it's a fixed blade, it needs to be full tang. And that means the blade goes all the way to the end, because knives can break. You can go out and spend as much money as you can possibly think on a good custom knife. For me, I have those. But for my packs, I carry, this is just a Gerber, LMF I think, or it's just a standard good knife, solid, didn't have to spend a lot of money on it. The thing is, I have friends that were down in, doing drug interdiction down in Colombia a few years ago. And these guys are all special forces guys, you know, 101st Army, you know, just a group of guys down there doing all this stuff. They were showing off all their expensive knives. They're like, man, I got this. Oh, I got this one. I'm doing this. When they got ready to go on a mission, they pulled out these because they were going to, you know, they'd lose them. And what also happens is if I spend $400 or $500 on a knife, it gives me less money to fit my pack the way I need to. So watch out for the shiny things. But this just goes on the outside, and I can attach this to my belt. Now I like to, right here at the front, I like to put things that I'm going to get to, I need to get to. They're a little quicker. And one is a bandana. Now there's a bazillion uses for a bandana. This, first off, I can cover my face. If there's smoke, if there's debris floating around, dust, different things, this makes it a lot better. I could get a mask, could get a respirator and all that, but I don't want that in my bag. So this gives me just something to cover up my face. But it also will cover up my head if the sun's burning. It'll also go around my neck, I can wet it. It'll also cover my face if I want not to be recognized. Or you can make a hobo sack out of this. You can put things in it. You can make repairs with it. Bazillion things. This is one thing about this is you want something that you can improvise. So always tourniquet. You can use, it's improvised to survive. So items that are multiple uses are really preferred. Now when it comes to a flashlight, now for me, I carry every day. I have a flashlight, I have a knife, you know, I have my EDC on me. I have my concealed carry permit, you know, firearm. But a headlamp, if I only had one light in a survival situation, it would be a headlamp. And what I really like is the headlamps that actually come off, and I can use this. But this gives me a hands-free option. So I can take it, put it on. I was under the house the other day with my son. We were putting in an Ethernet cable to his computer. Couldn't have done it without this. So this is just very practical, and yet it's a great item to have in your bag. And now this, I have a fire kit, but I put a few extra fire tools around. This is something if I just need it. This is actually a Bic lighter. It's in a fire sleeve. Bic lighters are the most convenient, but Bic lighters are also something that go out the easiest. It runs out of fuel, or this rod gets corroded and you can't get to it. So now this is if you live in a city, and this is a silcock. This will open up. Have you ever seen when you're in the city and you look and there's like a spigot, but there's no handle and it's got some weird thing? This fits those. Just happen to be able to get water. So this is something that I like to keep in there. Another fire, I'm a fire bug. I have a fire steel in there. All right. And then here at the front, have some cordage. Cordage is vital. This is just one of the cordage. This is also, I believe this is a multi-tool. It's a fire steel. This is redundant, but cordage is very important. You can use it, and we're gonna look in here in a minute, but if you take a tarp, you can tie it down. If you need to do repairs, if you have something that you're having to carry, you can actually tie it on to your pack. Zip ties, I don't think we have to explain that. Now this is something that's kind of cool. This is duct tape. And I got this at Home Depot. I was in the line, I was walking at the register, and I happened to look over and I saw this duct tape. It's handy, easy, you know duct tape. I mean, duct tape, repairs are gonna be important. This is called the spool tool, and it's by Exotag. I think they're here actually. Has a sewing needle inside, has Kevlar wire, and it has duct tape as well. So if I want to repair things, This is getting a little specialty, but I like it, so it's in there. Compass. Now the compass is going to go with something I mentioned a second ago, is a map. Everybody in my family has a map in their car. We depend on GPS, we depend on all that. This gives us other options, and so having a map. This one's actually, I have a southeast map because I want a general area, and you can get these at truck stops. It's hard to find now. Maps are getting harder to find. Go to a truck stop typically, or just get online, find a map in your area. But the compass will allow you to get some direction. One thing about bugging out, if you put a backpack on your back and you just head out, because a lot of people, that's their kind of idea, is like, if something happens, I'm just going to put my bag on, I'm going to take off. You're a glorified refugee. You have all your supplies at home, you have everything right there. If you start heading out in the woods, and I want you to think about it, if you put a bag like this on and you went out into those woods, how long do you think it would take before you were really SOL? Really need to think things through. And whatever you're thinking about in an emergency situation is thinking things through. One thing about having a bag like this is it takes away the panic, and it gives you a little bit of a calm to be able to make decisions. Water filter. Now this, normally I like a little bit larger filter, but this is a Frontier filter straw. It's tiny, it will filter 11 gallons of water. So instead of having to carry water, having a water filter is really vital. For this size bag, I like the Katadines, I like the MSR. Those are great. Sawyer Mini is a good small little water. But having water, again, 3 days, guys, 3 days. And you know, you can live a little longer than 3 days, but your body starts to get dehydrated and you'll start to cramp. I've been there, going to the range without water. Multi-tool, million uses. Very versatile. And the one thing about a good multi-tool, the one thing about having a good, strong multi-tool is that you don't have to have a number of tools. And you know, there's the old saying, jack of all trades, master of none. If you continue that motto out, it really says you need to be a jack of all trades. If you're a master, you're stuck into one keyhole. So versatility. And then this is just some peanut butter. All right, now this is where it gets a little more into real survival, except for the water. Rain poncho. You can be in the middle of July and be stuck out in the wilderness, and in the early mornings you're going to be freezing, especially if it's raining. So having something to keep you dry, keep you wet, it's just, and hopefully you may have something like that already in your vehicle. And with that, these bags, I will have a summer bag, summer, spring, and I'll have a fall, winter bag. So with this one, we've got a fleece, watch cap, and I have this is one of the SOL bivvies. It's just a emergency bivvy. It is like, you see the old space blankets, and they're like thin Mylar, you know, and they're just ripped. You know, you might be able to use it for a while, but this is like a hopped up space blanket, and it has a better material on the outside. You can get in it like a sleeping bag, and it has that reflective Mylar material inside. Very tiny, but yet very effective. It can be multiple uses. Now this, actually I got another one. Okay, so this is the Frontier filter. This is the Pro, a little bit larger. I believe I think it'll filter about 30 gallons. So, and it has, I actually have some water purification tabs in there as well. Water's a big deal. Trauma kit. Now, guys, we need trauma kits driving down the road. You get into an accident, something can happen. Keep yourself a trauma kit in your vehicle. We do a lot at the range, a lot of shooting, trauma kits everywhere. We have them when we're at the front, we have them in the vehicle, we have them around. And in here, cat tourniquet. Let me give you a warning about cat tourniquets. Is there's a lot of Chinese knockoffs, and they'll break. So you want to have something that is genuine. Have chest seals, have hemostatic gauze to keep the bleeding down. I do have a space blanket in here because for shock, and nitrile gloves, all that. But I highly recommend taking a trauma class. The one thing about medical to me, it's always been like this black magic. My wife's an RN, and I was like, okay, I can't understand that. What's funny is you go to a trauma class and you go, this isn't like, it's not black magic. You can do it. And you know, there are different ways, but you need to know some things, but they're very simple. And so having a good trauma kit, again, whatever medical you're using, put you a patch on there. Food. This is a lifeboat bar. Has, let's see how much this one has. They have different ones. I think this is 2,300 calories. It tastes like graham crackers. It won't make you thirsty because it's made for lifeboats. It's actually pretty good. In fact, I did a review on this one time a few years ago, and I opened it and I tested it and I was tasting it. I ate the whole bar sitting there fiddling around. I'd already eaten. Fire kit. I like to have a small kit with all my fire tender items. Now I may have some stuff also put in there. Fire is from the beginning. You gotta have fire to survive. It cooks your food, it boils your water, it gives you light, it gives you heat. It keeps predators back. Fire kits, guys, if nothing else, get yourself a good fire kit. It'll also make you a hero at the bonfire when your father-in-law pulls out the gasoline and you go, whoa, 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 and you bring this out. And he's like, wow, that was magic. Fire kit. And this is just a little admin pouch. I have some different things in here. I have an extra flashlight. I have a different type multi-tool. I have a pair of pliers, just some extra things. And again, you suit this to you. Now, do I really need this? I might in a personal SHTF. I might when I'm sitting on the side, somewhere and I go, man, I need something. It's like this table. So we get it out, it has these little things that pop out, hold the table. Well, one of them went in and down. And I'm like, well, what are we gonna do? Got in my bag, pulled out a zip tie and a tent stake. And I stuck the tent stake in, took the zip tie and put it on. Was that an SHTF? No. Did it make life a lot better? Yes. So this is what this is really about. You're gonna use it for everyday tasks way more than you're gonna use it, hopefully, in a survival situation. Now this is a big one. And this is funny, this is the cheapest thing in here. It's a heavy meal contractor's bag. I get these at Home Depot in a big box. It's a big roll. I put these in every bag. For one thing, I can lay it on the ground. Let's say I got a flat tire and it's raining. Throw that down on the ground, get up under there. I need shelter. I can put this over me. I need a poncho. I can make this into a poncho. Let's say I'm camping and the ground's cold. I can open this thing up and lay it on the ground. It gives me a little bit of insulation. I can carry water in this. Again, there are certain items that are just with me at all times because they just have so many uses. And there's more uses than that. Now, of course, we live in this electronic age, technological nightmare. A good backup battery source. And I have my cable. I also have other cables to fit what I need to, but I can actually have this set for my flashlights. I have a battery, I have some cables like that. And a way to write things down. This is just a write in a rain pad, and I think I've got a space pen in here. I can write things down, different reasons, but good to have. And two, how many times I've been in the car and I'm like, I need to write this down. And I go, so I can just pull this out and write it down. Every day, but yet you're prepared for whatever. This is one of my favorites. This is what they call the silky saw. Now, there's a lot of saws out there. I was at a fieldcraft survival class, and one of the instructors, we were cutting wood, doing stuff, and he said, here, try this. I went out and bought about 10 of these and gave each one to my kids, and my wife, and we put them in the bags. This is, even this cuts, and there's different sizes. You can get different sizes. There's one that's actually a little smaller than this. It cuts like butter. And if you've ever been out and you're trying to cut a limb or doing something with a saw, it's like you dread it. It's like, oh my gosh, man, this thing, it has this Japanese style blades on here, and it cuts really smooth and it cuts fast. So if nothing else, go out and buy yourself one of these. You'll thank me later. These are just awesome. silky saw. And there's different versions of them. I mean, huh?
Is that the Gomboy?
Pocket Boy. I think the Gomboy's in one of these.
I have the smaller Pocket Boy.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's one that's small. They come in different colors. Well, I think usually with a certain style, they have a certain color, but just great way to do it. Now, and this one does have a concealed carry pocket in the back. I could put different things in there. It's got soft material. A whistle for signaling. A whistle in case somebody's messing with you, or you got, you know, I mean, this is great. And having a whistle really draws a lot of attention. So all this is packed in here. Now, with that being said, I went to Walmart a few years ago and did a bag. I put together the cheapest bug out bag, get home bag that I could come up with. It was $89. That included the backpack. Now, I'm not recommending that, but I'm saying, honestly, to get started, if you can't afford it, I would start out going, hey, you know what? I got to use what I use, and then upgrade. I went back to Walmart and thought, I'm gonna fix the most premium bag I can come up with. $280, I think it was. And actually, it was a pretty decent bag because they do have some things that, you know, I could really up it. I went to REI, and that's a whole different story. $400. Almost $900. And hey, that was the cheapest. That was as cheap as we could be. We went in and and it was funny. I found this. This is a North Face. It's a duffel. But what happened was, I built the bag out. I could have spent $3,000 on a bug out bag in there. Somebody told me, they said, you should do that. And I'm like, well then, let's open up a GoFundMe. This is a duffel, and it's funny, when I saw it, I was looking for the least expensive backpack I could find. And this was like rolled up like this. And I was like, what the heck's that? And I was looking at it and I thought, it opens up. This will collapse back into a small bag. What I love about this, I just put it in the back of my car and I have my stuff in here. What I love about this is, like in a backpack, you got to dig through it. In this, you just open it up, and in the back of the car, it's like everything's right there. And so I just put all the items. One thing I do want to show you though is having a way to cook. And especially with something that you may be a number of days, you know, where it's just, you know, if I've got 24 hours or even 48 hours, I'm just going straight. I'm going home, I'm getting home, whatever. If it's longer than that, I need to really consider having carrying enough food is going to be almost impossible. But maybe, you know, forage, maybe you can find something, maybe you can get something. Has a little cup, I can hook this up, I'm ready to go. I can boil my water, I can make my coffee, which I'm going to do that with this in the morning. That just gives me a great option, and then I like that nestling. Now, one thing too is a container, and actually for this bag I had I think it was this one, yeah. What you want is, metal is good because you can put that directly on a fire. I could actually take rice, pour rice down in here, put some water, I could boil it, but you want single wall. If it has an insulated wall in there, they can explode. So make sure it's a single wall container. And one thing I like is not having any kind of plastic or anything here that seals it up. This single wall container. In fact, I think, yeah, this is Pathfinder. This is Dave Canterbury's. And so I knew it was going to be good. But having some kind of container, because the thing is, even if you have that filter straw or whatever, you can fill up water with whatever source you have, and you can take it, and then you can actually drink out of this with the filter. But you can carry water. You're not stuck next to water all the time. So containers are very important. This is the Escape Bivy. This is more like a sleeping bag. But for this pack, I needed something really small. For this one, I can go a little bit bigger, but that's not really what I'm counting on. Here, I have a tarp. Of course, we have my eyelets. Because I have cordage, I can actually make a shelter out of this. And what's really cool is it has Mylar inside. So this is going to keep the wind off, it's going to keep the rain off, and it's going to keep you just warmer. And I would tell you what brand this is, but I can't remember.
Is that Arcturus?
I think it is. I think it is, yeah. Again, I got 2 in there of these. Now, think about consumables. What are things that you're going to need? Water. You're going to need food. You're going to need to take care of your feet. Ask anybody that's been in the military, they'll tell you, socks are important. You hiking out, you're doing what you're doing, after a couple of days, your feet, you're going to get all kind of, you're just going to have a lot of problems. Having an extra pair of socks. What you can do, if you only have 2, is you can take one, rinse them out, hang them on your pack, you got another pair. A good pair of boots, now, or sturdy shoes in your vehicle. A few years ago in Atlanta, they had the apocalypse, the storm apocalypse, snow apocalypse. Yeah. There were people stuck on, I think it was 285, wasn't it? It was they were just jammed up. There was a lot of people walking with high heels on, with business shoes, walking around like this. It was funny because a lot of times I'll jump in my car with my flip-flops on. I'm just, I'm going up here, I'm going over here. And I saw that and I thought, they weren't expecting it either. So now in the back of my car, I keep a good pair of boots that are just there. Also a blanket. Now, when we're talking about bugging out, the best option, number one, is bunkering in. If you're gonna bug out, the best option is a vehicle with a covered trailer slammed full of stuff. The worst option is on foot. Now, you know what? Traffic jam, you may not be able to go anywhere. One thing that a lot of people, I had some guys tell me one time, they lived in Tennessee and they said, we've got this hunting cabin down in Alabama and it's about 6 hours away. We got it stocked up, full, we're ready to go. And I said, what's gonna happen if you can't get there? And I said, what? You don't know what's gonna happen. We were coming home from an NRA event that was in Indianapolis, I believe. We were coming through Kentucky. All of a sudden, in the middle of nowhere, dead stop traffic. People were getting angry. Trucks are just like, they're mad. They're just, everybody, tempers are getting up. And I'm just watching this and I'm thinking, this is just an everyday event. This is just normal. And and finally, it took us about 2 hours to get through this gorge. And there were these 2 guys standing up on the side of the hill doing something. And for some reason, that was causing a traffic jam. If there is an actual event, some kind of event, something happens in Atlanta, there's a bomb that goes off or whatever, every way out of there is going to be jammed up. So bugging out should be, on foot, should be part of your mindset. Now this is just extra. This is something that I really like as far as water filtration. It's called the Grail, and it's a press. So what you do is, you fill this up with water. Oh, there we go. I didn't have to. So I fill this up with water. I take this and I just press it, and it presses the water through the filter. And now I've got a container. I can't put this on a fire, but I've got a container and I can carry this with me. These are really cool. This really comes more in handy, again, for different normal things that just can happen. I need a multi-tool, I need a razor, I need one of the Griffin tools, that Casey sells. I have a driver set with small little different type driver bits. Guys, they've come up with so much stuff. Capitalism is absolutely unbelievably beautiful when it comes to choices of all the different things that we can have. This has compass. I do have a fishing kit in here. It's just a small little fishing kit. That is an important option if you're going to be going for days. You can follow along streams and be able to have a little fishing kit. Got a whistle in there. I do have, and this is something that I do keep in a lot of packs, is tripwire. It's substitute for some cordage. I can take and repair things. I can do different things with this. It just gives me more options. And I typically have additional flashlights. And one thing about a flashlight is that it is your #1 security tool. You're going to use a flashlight more than you're going to use a gun or you're going to use any other thing. But the one thing about a flashlight, you can carry it about anywhere. But if you have one that comes out a little bit past your hand, this makes a great self-defense impact weapon. I carry flashlights that are bigger in my pocket for that very reason. If I need it, and when people in Europe They're going, well, we can't have guns, we can't do that. I said, get you a flashlight. You can't have pepper spray, whatever. One thing I do want to mention though, when COVID hit and the Black Lives Matter, the Antifa and all this stuff was going on, my wife had a trip from Greenville to Chattanooga, and she had to go through Atlanta. And there was some things going on. And I set up a bag where she had her firearm and her magazines, but pepper spray. And I have not always been big about pepper spray, because I'm like, it's a great non-lethal option, but in a mob situation, it's really one of the only things that you've got going. And if you've ever watched Active Self-Protection, it's John Correa. He does actual footage of self-defense situations, and he does a whole thing on pepper spray. And you watch that. Now, there are a few people that aren't affected by it, so you got to have that in mind. And you don't want it coming back on you. But man, you get a crowd, you spray that stuff, it works wonders. One thing is, though, if you keep it in your vehicle, especially in the summertime, it can rupture. So just keep that in mind. The big thing is, oh, and now here's another option, because I just want to show you a few options. I'm not sure they actually make this anymore, but this is the indoor canteen. It fits in your standard canteen. What's really cool about this, it has a filter built in. So I fill it with water, take this, ready to go. And I can use this, but the beautiful thing is I have a canteen cup right here in the bottom. So I can boil my water, I can cook something, do whatever, even though this is plastic. So just like Dave did. And also typically with this, I like redundancy. I like to have multiple, and that leads me to one more thing. When it comes to fire, Bic lighters, again, they go out. I've had it happen 1,000 times. Well, not 1,000, but a lot. I like to have redundant fire starting ability. One of the best, that's the most long lasting, is a ferro rod or ferrocerium rod. This will take 10,000 strikes. I can just keep using it. I don't have to really worry about anything. This is from Exotac, which is really one of my favorites. And you have a tinder tab. Tinder is very important. You can have a big lighter, but try to start a fire with leaves. You might be able to build a nest. That's great. Try it in the rain. Tinder tabs, or what I like to use is Vaseline and cotton balls. Been using that for years. Or you can take wax, like Gulf wax, take those little cosmetic pads. That's one of my favorites. I like the little pads, and you can put them in wax when it's hot, let it set out, and it makes a really nice, in fact, I have it in one of these kits. But I like to have, having tinder is very important. And that's one thing sometimes people are, they have the fire tools. This is a blast match. If you have one hand, most of your fire, except for your Bic lighter, most of your fire starting tools require two hands. With this, I can just do that. I can just press it, and then it'll start a fire. And the Air Force, these are actually called Air Force blast matches. That's what they use. And this is actually another Air Force. It's a little striker, and it has tinder tabs in it. You can get these on eBay or probably Amazon really cheap. It's got its own little container. So just 1,000 different ways. And then again, you have your magnesium bar. That's the old school. That works too. But what I found is sometimes when I'm building a fire, it's like there's something about the way this isn't working. So I have a number of different ways to be able to make sure. One thing, I'll give you a challenge, is try making a fire in the rain or building a fire, whether it's right outside after a rain. And there is a process, but here's the thing. I did it. I have a video on it if you guys want to check it out. But it takes a little work, but it's really not that difficult to do. And it had been raining for 3 days. So I thought, what the heck, I'm gonna get out here and figure it out. But having that ability, because the thing is, again, this boils your water, cooks your food, gives you light, gives you heat. Fire is essential, and being able to make fire. This is something I wanted to bring up. Wet wipes. Now you can pack toilet paper. You can pack some toilet paper and flatten it out and use it. Wet wipes are a much nicer option. And plus, you can keep your face clean, you can keep yourself cooler. Wet wipes. And of course, you know, this has batteries in it, and I can pull this out, but this has CR123s. When it comes to flashlights, I like the lithium batteries. They burn brighter, they're nice and all that. But to find these, like you go into a store, sometimes AA, AAA, they're easier to find. So I do, in fact, I've been carrying it for some reason, but I didn't bring it with me. But I like to have that option as well, even if it's just packed away, and I can change those batteries out. Chapstick, you know, then you think about toiletries, and of course the wet wipes work that way, but even a small little toothbrush, and you think, you know, if you go days and days, it can cause some issues. Another silky sock. And there are smaller. Map, tent stakes. If you got the tarp, yeah, you can tie it around to a tree, you can do it, but tent stakes work really well. And I just keep tent stakes in here. Now, you could have a small backpacker's tent and things like that. Then it starts to get heavy and you're carrying it. One thing though that a lot of guys will say, especially when building these out, is, oh, you gotta watch your weight, you gotta watch the weight, you know, watch the weight, and you do. But here's the thing, if it gets too heavy, toss out something that, maybe that admin pouch. You're like, well, I mean, this is getting heavy, I don't really need this. If you've ever, I think it was the Chisholm Trail, back when there was a lot of frontiers, you know, for the Western expansion. And when you're going along these wagons, they'd have a piano on there. They would have, like, you know, all these pots, but they'd have all this stuff, these heirlooms. If you go along that trail afterwards, there's like stuff just all the way down where people just got rid of stuff because it put a lot of strain on their wagon. You put this on your back, it's gonna put a lot of strain on your back. So take the things that you feel like you can get rid of, because obviously if you can't get rid of it, that's something you need. If you can get rid of it, it's probably something you didn't need. But also what I like to do, and this is just a little extra, is I keep, in fact, there's a box right there, but I keep that with certain survival items. Another thing is I have my bag in my car. My wife has her bag. My kids have their bags. But what happens when we travel together? We got one bag. So I like to have that box in there with items that I'm going to be using. That's not my tool kit. That's not for my car repair kit. It's not for my emergency kit. This is just a separate box. If I have to, I have extra items in there. So if there's two of us and I forget to put another bag in there, it gives me more options. Well, this is something that's, now, more knives. This one actually, I took apple cider vinegar and actually tempered that to just take off the little bit of an edge to it. But here I got paracord, I've got fire starter, I've got duct tape underneath it, and it makes it a really compact little package. And these Moore knives are fairly inexpensive, but they're really good. I mean, they're just great knives. For paracord, this is called the spool tool. If you've ever bought a hank of paracord, it's not long before it's like all over the place. I've got like plastic containers just with that stuff in it. This organizes that, it keeps it in one place, and then it hooks around. It has a little blade right here where I can cut it. Typically has a really small lighter you can put in here, but they always go out, always, so I just don't have it in there. But these are really cool, and you can get them with the paracord on it, or you can just get it. But this has been one of the best ways I've found to organize paracord. No, I'll have all this out, and if you have any questions when you come up here, but thanks for coming. I will put this, if this video turns out well, I'll put this on Sensible Prepper if you guys want to just check that out, and then at least if there's something you were wondering about, you can hear about it. All right, so thank you guys.
Thank you.
So guys, if you're into bushcraft, if you're into homesteading, if you're into prepping or survival, this is a great opportunity to get together with a lot of different people that are like-minded. Again, guys, the event had so many different classes. I think there were over 100 classes that you could choose from. And the event goes all weekend. It's just a lot of fun. And hopefully the video brought out a few things that you could take with you to set up your get-home bag and your bug-out bag. Every one of my family members has a get-home bag in their vehicle. We have bug-out bags. It's important to have those items for survival that you need ready to go. And again, check out Georgia Bushcraft at georgiabushcraft.com. It is a tremendous event. And a big thanks to Casey Deming and the crew that just put on an incredible event. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. This is down in Watkinsville, Georgia, just south of Athens. And it's a beautiful countryside, really large area out in the country, and it's out in the country, and it's out in the country. Or just EDC. And it's just a really close-knit community that just, they get all knitted up. They do knitting. They have some knitting classes. There's a lot of classes. There's a lot of vendors. There's just a lot of something. There's a lot. There's just a lot. Guys, I was recently down in in Watkinsville.